judge how fast the ball's moving here.
That's frustrating.
It's frustrating.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
But I'm sure if I
You
was
kind of get used to it, you know. I mean, and your brain adjusts. But my kids,
Yeah.
the oldest is 26.
You are kidding me.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to believe.
Were you a child?
Jim, we good? Ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
I'd like to
I'd like
welcome
to
you all
say
to
that that was true.
the March 15th meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of Charleston. My name is Charlie Harris. I'm the chairman of the commission. I'm joined by Vice Chairman Harry Lassane, commission members Jimmy Bailey, Donna Jacobs, Angie Johnson, Eric Harrison, and McKenna Joyce. We will operate tonight, and for all of these folks who are appointed by Charleston City Council, they're volunteers. I know you join me in thanking everyone. Also, commission member, we're joined also by commission member Peter Brian Jenkins as well. So thank you. Glad you could make it. So, the way we'll operate tonight is I'll read an item into the record, then we'll hear from staff, then we'll hear from the applicant. Then we'll hear from anyone that's in favor of the application, anyone that may have opposition to the application. Then we'll give the applicant a chance to rebut or give any final comments. At that time, we'll close the public hearing, and the commission members discuss, make motions, and vote on any particular item. I'd ask if you have a phone, please put it on silent or turn it off. I'd ask Mr. Morgan to introduce any staff that will be working with, that will be presenting tonight.
I'm Christopher Morgan, planning manager of the city. On our part, we'll be presenting some cases for you all related to subdivision and subdivision property conversion. And then, of course, in a few minutes, you're going to have a presentation from Dale Morris, who's our chief facility officer.
Go ahead and get started. The first thing we have on the agenda is a presentation by Mr. Morris, by Dale Morris. Ready, Mr. Morris, come on up and introduce yourself and tell us what we're going to.
Good evening. I'm Dale Morris, the Chief Facilities Officer of the city. I know some of you. For those who don't know me, Chief Facilities Officer for the last 18 months in the city. I brought the Dutch dialogues here years ago, worked on the land and water analysis that underpinned the city's comprehensive plan. I was sort of a consultant to the city at that point, and previous to that, I worked at the Water Institute, which is a not-for-profit technical applied research organization that does flood risk mitigation in the Gulf of Mexico, cities use it in more than Tampa, and up the coast. And prior to that, for 23 years, I directed some team economists, I directed the Dutch government's climate and water adaptation, flood risk mitigation work. I'm here in Charleston, so good. Is there a quick, you going to advance the slide? So, Christopher pinged me a couple weeks ago or a month ago and said, hey, the planning commission would like to hear from you and talk about a couple items that are on the way because you don't know about them and I should tell you about them. So I do that. 3 items. Well, 2 items and then one little tickler. I'm going to talk a little about the comprehensive integrated water plan that we have under development. Update you on our flooding and sewer rights strategy because updated, and then talk to you about the most misunderstood project in the city, which is not news here, but it is the Army Corps project for surge protection and how that integrates with comprehensive water. I am the project manager for the city for that project. I have long standing experience for 14 years in working on these sort of big infrastructure challenges, and I'll talk about that. And what I would like you all to do, I hope this is interactive. This is really complex stuff, so if you have questions, just maybe I have some direction. Is that good? Okay, next slide, please. Thanks. So that's what I said, so next slide after that. So that dialogue made a number of recommendations, and quite honored as for the leader of that process, the city has adopted and moved forward with a number of those things. One of the things we recommended was the city should develop a sort of a mid and long-term comprehensive water plan. And not an engineering plan, but a plan of how do you stay here given sea level rise and climate change and land use challenges. How do you stay here in 50 years? The Dutch will tell you you need to plan in 100-year segments, and they do. We have 10, 20, 50, and 100-year sort of planning horizons. So this this is sort of a 50-year low or 25-year low. City council did not fund the water plan. Other priorities during COVID, that's perfectly fine. During the development or the work on the Army Corps project, the city established a 3x3x3 Army Corps project, the England Coastal Storm Management Project, where the Citizens Advisory Committee established, advised the city, work with the city on that project. It is pretty complex. Susan Lyons is here, she's a member of that. 12 citizens representing stakeholder groups and certain parts of the city, and then 2 city council members are on that. And they recommended that the city do or fund a comprehensive citywide water plan. So we eventually procured it, went through the procurement process about a year ago. We started this, had a number of applicants, consultants, went through the selection process, hired those folks in August, and they started their work in September. We think the work should be done by the end of this year, early next year. The goal is before the end of 2023, but you know, scheduled work with consulting engineers and biologists and things like that. Water plan, look at current and future flood risk, mitigation and adaptation. It is not an engineering plan, and an engineering plan for the entire city with tens of millions of dollars, right? So this is not that. This is a long-term or directional plan, say here are the risks, here are the risks, how they're going to evolve. It is citywide, so we're looking at all the city, from Daniel Island and Canehoy, which is future development, all the way over to John Island and Baines Island, and some challenges in this stuff right there. We are assuming in the water plan, consulting, assuming 14 to 18 inches of sea level rise at the term of the planning horizon. It's 2050. So how do we do what we do over the next 20 to 25 years? 14 to 18 inches of sea level rise, why that number? Last year, if you follow this, last year, a number of federal government agencies that have strong scientific underpinnings, the U.S. Geological Survey, NOAA, the National Weather Service, the Army Corps of Engineers, all these entities got together, and they, models are converging with sea level rise estimates for the next 20 to 30 years. There's some variability, some sort of tail risk at the end of their but by 2050, we have a really good sense because of convergence of models. This is going to be the right horizon. So we put that in this plan, and the team is working with that. So that's pretty important because if you know the city, we've had 13 inches of measured sea level rise over the last 10 years. 7 of that is in the last 30. So if you think of that acceleration sea level rise, we know it's going to happen. And because most of the city is drained for gravity in ditches, in the peninsula, because that's pipes and tunnels a lot of places, but the rest of the city is gravity and ditches. Sea level rise is going to fill those ditches. And how do you get the water out when it rains? So we need to understand that horizon and what that means for land use and future development. Really important. Our zones of inquiry, the hydrologic basin, the floodplain, the neighborhood, and then the edge. We have to think both of the edge of the area, neighborhood, as well as the basin within it, the hydrologic basin, how the water collects in there and then tries to move through it. Looking at all flood hazards, surge, tidal, groundwater, rainfall, and compound flooding. Compound flooding is not only now well understood in models. It's really hard to model what would happen when it's raining and the tide is up. The cycle that how those things interact. The models have a hard time predicting that. Compound flood modeling has really improved in the last 7 to 8 years. So it's wonderful. We're looking at all those things that it rains when the tide is up too. We're looking at outcomes for land use, for infrastructure. So can we do something with our roads that also mitigates flood risk? Other types of infrastructure, drainage and pipes and pumps and all those other things. Adaptation strategies, land use. This is going to be really important. There's going to be some pain associated with the outcome of this report. It's going to cost us money to stay here. Let's be frank about it. And that's what the water plan committee is trying to tease out for us. Some policy changes. City council is going to have some hard decisions to make. If we want to stay here, this is going to be painful. Charleston isn't unique. I've worked around the U.S. Charleston isn't the only city that's facing this. Most coastal cities are facing these same problems. I will say this because I work elsewhere. Charleston is addressing it. It's in the boxing ring, right? Charleston is in the boxing ring. Some cities are ignoring it. Some cities are so siloed that they can't get their hands around it. So it's really difficult. Charleston is not that. I always ask, is Charleston doing enough? I don't know. We're doing a lot. And there's going to be some prioritization here. What do we do in the next 5 years? What do we need to do in the next 10 years? How do we think about adaptive management, low-hanging fruit, and no-regret strategies that will come out of this prioritization process? Again, we hope to have it done by the end of the year. And of course, we have other policy things going on. The Peninsula Plan is being developed, as you all know. We want to inform that. Planning is also doing a rewrite of the zoning ordinance. We want to inform that too, because zoning ordinance doesn't get a rewrite of the zoning ordinance doesn't occur all that often, so we want to influence that so it doesn't take another 20 or 30 years before we address this. We have a wonderful team. The leads are Black and Veatch, big, large engineering company. They do heavy infrastructure, drainage. They're the ones who are helping with the Spring Fishburne Tunnel and the Market Street Tunnel and all the tunnels that the city has. We have Biohabitat, which is a national firm, the president of which is based here in Charleston, nature-based solutions. So they're trying to help us understand how Mother Nature can help us manage some of these things and adapt to sea level rise and rain bombs and tidal incidences, tidal impacts. We have Mott and Nickel. That's a privately held large firm, 2,000 folks in it. They work for a lot of key agencies, federal government, on coastal flooding issues. Really smart modelers and engineers, economists, things like that. And then we have Wagner and Ball. You know them. They're the counterpart in the Dutch Islands team. Worked on the Dutch Islands. They plan in the U.S. They're the only firm that has led the development of a water plan. The rest of the they're the lead to the project. So we have good firms. And then Brockington, Del Tars, and other subject matter expert firms are already. So it's pretty good. We think it'll be, we hope it's going to be an important document that the city will back on in 10 or 50 years. To say that
Well, thank you. Yeah. There's a question, Mr. Jacobs, in here.
Did I understand you correctly to say that Wagner Ball has done a water plant for someone else? And who?
Portland was the first city that developed that comprehensive integrated water plant that came out of the Dutch Islands there. I was an advisor to that plan too. So just so you're aware, Mr. Wagner is my friend. I stayed out of the selection process. I was not part of it, so no conflict. But they do have that knowledge. And they were here last week. We did a week worth of, so they spent the first 3 or 4 months collecting a lot of data. There's a lot of planning that's already been done. We're trying to understand that and have it available to us so we can synthesize that, collecting new data, seeing the data gaps. And also we did a week of workshops last week focusing on the region and the citywide aspect of this. How do we do this citywide? And then we looked at the Peninsula and Rosemont last week. Beginning of April, we will have a week-long set of workshops. In West Ashley, out of West Ashley, being we'll be out there. We're working 8 or 10 hours. How they see the problems, how they've seen the problems change for whatever reason, and then what they want from flood mitigation adaptation.
So as we move forward, because we're doing something in real time. We can't just put a moratorium on building and go, wait, the sea's rising, and we gotta wait to do anything else until we get a water plan and a zoning plan. Can't do that. You know that. So will there be some interim like checkpoints to say advisory, like you ought to pay attention to this because we're really noticing this, that, or the other? Will there be that opportunity so that we don't trip over ourselves in the interim?
So I would say this. I have a number of really smart city colleagues, the stormwater department, and the planning department, and the traffic department. They're doing work. So we're not waiting for this work, as you know, gets stacked up. It takes 2 or 3 years to plan it, to design it, to engineer it, to build it, right? So that work is underway, and it continues. All this planning work that the planning department is doing, that is not, we're not sitting still. City council is going to you all heard, is going to consider an ordinance in a couple of weeks to ban slab-on-grade construction in the 100-foot floodplain, because slab-on-grade construction in the 100-foot floodplain is what brings most fill in. You have to elevate roads for public safety reasons in certain areas. You have to use fill for that. But we know fill is used to build slab-on-grade, and we are going to consider banning. City council is going to consider ordinance. So that work will continue. We are not standing still. This team will meet with ASMET and will continue to meet with staff.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and you mentioned how this is going to integrate with the downtown plan and the new zoning ordinance rewrite. Explain to us exactly how that's going to work from a timing standpoint. And I guess it's probably the same answer you just gave to Ms. Jacobs' question.
So the peninsula plan is just started. I think there's a 12 to 18 months schedule for that. The water plan will be finished.
You'll be ahead of that, yeah.
We had the peninsula plan read with us last week when we were working on the water plan.
Great.
The other plan, what was the other plan? So the peninsula plan.
The zoning.
Ordinance. So that is underway. Keep in mind that Wagner Ball and myself, we were part of the land and water analysis that underformed comprehensive plan that set these new ways to develop. And that's going to underpin how the zoning ordinance or the zoning ordinance rewrite looks at elevation as the lens, land and water elevation, is the lens through which development should occur going forward. So we will, that's also going to take at least a year or two, complex stuff. So
yep.
Water plan team work will be finished before both of those.
Any other questions, Mr. Morris? Did I cut you off? If you were still presenting,
No, I have a couple other slides.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So next slide, please. So just so you're aware, you may know that the city developed a flooding and sea right strategy in 2015. It was updated in 2019. When I came on board, I thought, okay, we need to update that sometime soon. Actually, bond raters were calling the city saying, hey, you got a great flooding and sea right strategy. What's changed? What's going on? It was out of date. So a static document was out of date. The date was printed. That happens all the time. What I decided to do was to use this update to explain all the things that the city is doing and has done to adhere to the previous strategy requirements. So we worked with a lot of folks last summer and through the fall. The city's Resilience Sustainability Advisory Committee is going to get this in a day or two. They will look at it, provide comments. It is an online only document, so you can update it in real time. It won't be static. You can continue to update it all the time. If you would print this out, it's 100 pages. It follows these categories of the seasonal rights strategy. What's the problem? What's our plan generally? And then what are the key areas? And the seasonal rights strategy has 5 key areas: land use, infrastructure, governance, resources, partnerships. The things that we explain in the strategy, all the things that the city has been doing. And I will tell you, when you look at this, you'll see the city has been pretty busy. So there's a lot here to explain, and the citizens don't understand it. Susan Lyons, a friend of mine, complains to me that no one knows what the city's doing. Well, this is intended to address some of that. So that's there, you'll see it very soon. Any questions about that? Major policy change in this is that 14 to 18 inches. The original seasonal rights strategy, the 2019 strategy, at 2 to 4 feet by 2070. That's a really big number and a big variation, 2 to 4 feet. How do you plan for that? It's a long horizon, so we put in there 14 to 18 inches by 2050. So that's an important consideration for us. Next slide, please. Now I want to talk about the Army Corps project. If you need to interrupt me because there's questions, please do. I've worked with the Army Corps of Engineers. You may know that the Dutch government and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers collaborate closely. It's a project team that does that that coordinates that. When I was at the NSC, I was a project team. So I know the Corps from my perspective as well as I've worked with them in these other cities. However, the city developed its own all-hazard vulnerability analysis in 2019 and 2021, done by a number of very good firms, separate from the Army Corps process. With all hazards, both physical and social vulnerabilities, And they came up with this sort of slide. What are our vulnerabilities? The highest vulnerability the city has is storm surge. The storm surge doesn't occur very often. The last major storm surge was Hurricane Hugo in 1989. So a few other near calls because the hurricanes are people along with this. Storm surge is the highest vulnerability we have because it will destroy the most things. It will knock the city down. You can see what happens in other places, right, from storm surge. We have other vulnerabilities too that associate with water. That's the floodplain inundation. That is whether that's the tides coming in, and that's going to be an increasing vulnerability going forward because of sea level rise, or because it's raining a lot, and we have either undersized infrastructure or infrastructure in the wrong places, not up infrastructure, right? So we have rain problems, tide problems, and storm surge. But storm surge is the highest vulnerability. Next slide, please. So in 2018, Congress gave the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers money to do a coastal storm risk management project. I think Congressman Sanford, who was in office at the time, requested this funding. We worked with the city to get this. So this CSRM, Coastal Storm Risk Management Project, or a 3x3 project, or here this 3x3x3, which is 3 years, $3 million, 3 levels of review. This is a standard process that the Army Corps uses. It's been vetted by federal government, Office of Management Budget, and all the regulatory agencies. So it is a not very supple process. Okay, there are things, and it's $3 million. Not a lot of money when you're trying to do this kind of work. That's what they did. And the reason the Army Corps set this process in place in 2014 was the Army Corps was asked to years and years and years, do a study on this, do a study on that, and Congress didn't give them enough money, so they would start and stop studies, and studies would take a decade. If you recall, prior to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, there was a 20-year study underway that said you need to finish building your protection system. That study was never completed, so the protection system never got funding from Congress to be completed, and guess what happened in Katrina? So 2014, Congress changed this. The Army Corps said we're going to give you 3 years, $2 million, 3 levels of review. Study kicked off in April 2018. April 2020 was the original tentative selected plan that the Corps of Engineers released. Public comments came in, very good ones, and said, you know what, you didn't do an environmental impact statement, you did a thinner environmental analysis, do an EIS, can you put in some more nature-based features, and we have some problems with the alignment that you suggested. So the Corps sort of ingested that, and they went back and they sort of did a full EIS. And at the same time, the city hired a number of outsiders, including Wagner Ball, the Water Institute, and others, to look over the Corps of Engineers' shoulder to say, is Rutgers suggesting the right thing to do? You may recall that's called the discovery analysis. I was part of the meeting, and we reported before the Army Corps updated their plan recommendation. We reported back as a team to the city saying, it isn't perfect what they're doing, but they're going down the right direction. We don't think you need to stop the process, but you need to bird dog them a little bit and get them to change direction on some things. That was our recommendation. So in the jargon of the Army Corps, we didn't need the city to do a locally preferred plan or an LPP. The city could continue with the process, but demand more of that. So that's what, in fact, the city has done. The optimized report or plan came out in September of 2021. There was an objection from the port regarding Union Pier property and the Columbus Terminal properties because they were outside of the line of protection, if you recall. The reason for that is quite simple. The Army Corps and an economist sees a piece of property with nothing on it, its value is 0. So why would you spend money to protect it? That's how the Army Corps looks at this. So they didn't, and of course they would do better. And so the Army Corps did, and they did. So that was changed and finalized in September 2021. Went through all these crazy sort of internal processes of the Army Corps last spring and summer. The end of the day is December 2022. The Chief of Engineers, for the summer of 2020, the Chief of Engineers of the Army Corps sent it to Congress. This is what we think should be done. Should we move? Can you give us money to move in the next phase? They did that. Congress authorized the next phase of the project and gave the Army Corps $13 million to phase 1 of the next phase, and I'll talk about Next slide, please. So the Army Corps is ready to go. This is their feasibility plan. You've seen this document or this image. So is a feasibility plan, it is not an engineering or design plan. That comes next. So it's this feasibility. Is it feasible for the federal government to help the city of Charleston protect the peninsula? That's the question. And feasibility means, is there space to do it? And does it have a positive benefit cost ratio? That's what makes it feasible. So you have to look at all these things, but it's a feasibility study, nothing more than that. So they went through the process, and they recommended an 8-mile storm surge structure around the margin of the peninsula, and 12-foot NAVD88, not 12 foot above your head, but 12-foot NAVD88. The lowest part of the peninsula is about 3.5. So the highest wall you would ever get, or structure you would get, would be 8.5 feet above you. In some places, the structure only needs to be 5 feet or 4 feet because the ground is already at 8 or 9 feet, right? So that's how this works. That's the ideal. We'll talk about why that number was chosen in a bit. The alignment is all on public property. There is no private property that has to be taken for this. And because it's all on public property, some of the cost of donating the easement will be credited back to us. Keep that in mind. They added some nature-based features. You can see them here in the green, down here in the green. We think more are possible. We do. We can get that on the next page, but they listened and they did that. Because you're putting a structure at 12-foot NAVD88, you're creating a bathtub. So the worry is, what happens if it's raining? Does that water get impounded? Or what happens if it's a 12-foot NAVD88 and you get a 14-foot storm surge? NOAA tells us that the maximum storm surge we could ever get, just because of the nature of our foreshore, is 17 foot. So that's okay. So this is a 12-foot, and there's a reason for that. But if you have a 14-foot wave and a 12-foot wall, 2 foot gets over the top. So the Army Corps the project has to put in pumps to deal with that. So the flags around the peninsula, where in theory, they would put pumps. They size the pumps a certain way, because that goes into the cost estimate, and they said, we'll put these pumps there for you. Good. $1.3 billion cost, so it's not cheap. The feds would pay 65% of it. The local government would have a cost of 35% of that. And because of the easement credits, the financial credit back to the city, our net cost, if we would do this, in current dollars, we know what's going on with inflation, so current dollars would be $250 million. That's a lot of money, right? One of the things that's important to understand, so our project here has a 10.8 to 1 benefit cost ratio. I'm an economist, for those who work in economics, that's really high. In fact, this is the highest DCR, benefit cost ratio, for a project of this kind in the nation. Why is that? Because the peninsula is rather small. I don't think it's big, it's rather small. There's a lot of stuff here to protect. So there's a lot of value, small size, benefit cost ratio to protect this goes on. But the federal government looks at this and they say, oh, if we give them, for every dollar we give them, we save almost $11 in future avoided losses. So it's feasible. As a matter of fact, it's really feasible. So they're really excited to do this project. Good for them. Our design goal, I want to talk about this. Our design goal is not to build a Marby wall or the Berlin Wall around the city. No one wants that. The mayor doesn't want it. Obama doesn't want it. Who doesn't want it? There's no one who wants it. So no one wants it. However, we have this thing called a low battery and a high battery, which seems to have some sort of significance here, and people kind of like those things. Could we take that low battery idea and extend that around the peninsula? Yes, we can with this project, but we have to be careful in the design phase. So no one wants the wall, but if we can extend the low battery to reduce our surge risk, help us manage our tidal risk, because if you build a wall at 12 foot and your tides are at 5 foot, why wouldn't that wall manage them too? The challenge is, in these areas where the structure would cross the tidal marshes and the tidal creek, we have to go through the design phase to set the operation level for those tidal gates. So what level tide or surge do we close the gates? That's 7.5 feet. So you know most of the peninsula is pretty good until 7.5 feet. Broad and Lockwood gets a little bit wet 7 feet mean level, or at 7.5, it's tricky. 8 is bad, right? So if we can go through the design phase and say, wait a minute, we're gonna close these gates at 7.5 feet, we've just solved a lot of our peninsula tidal problems. And if it's raining at the same time, and we make sure these stormwater pumps are integrated with our current drainage system, these are things you do in the next phase of the project, and maybe we pay the marginal cost increase to increase the size of those pumps. And we have a better drainage system. So now we are dealing with surge and tidal and rainfall. So we have to get to the next phase to do that. So there's a lot of possibilities with this. And if we can get the federal government to pay 65% of the cost, why wouldn't we try? Next slide, please. So just a little bit, if you watch this process, the Army Corps can be the most frustrating entity in the federal government to do it, right? Military, bullets are flying, they need to build bridges and barracks, they just do. They follow the orders and they go. And they do this with this project too. You need to have someone pushing back with them. We push back on them. Problem is, right now, is they're under guidance from 1983. There's some of us in the room that may remember President Ronald Reagan saying, government needs to work like business. So this benefit cost analysis, benefit cost ratio consideration was put into place for all federal agencies in 1983. It's called the Principles and Guidelines. The Army Corps has to do that. And what it says is you need to get the most benefit for the lowest cost. That's really good for the taxpayers. Because think about it, why should a California taxpayer pay to protect Charleston? Right? So in that broad perspective, lowest benefit, highest benefit, lowest cost is really smart. However, if you're going to do storm surge, you're not looking at these other sort of flood risks, it's really stupid. So a lot of people know this, but the Army Corps cannot get out of its own way, not because it's not smart enough, but because they follow orders and Congress does not change the orders. This is a congressional problem. Congress knows about this. In fact, in 2014, federal agencies tried to change this law or change these regulations. Most of the federal government was on board with this. And in 2016, early 2017, that process was stopped to change this updated process. The process is now underway. There is likely rulemaking coming to implement something called the PRNG, which was the Principles, Requirements, and Guidelines, which was updated in this 2014 effort. And these are the things: healthy, resilient ecosystems, sustainable economic development, focus on the floodplain, public safety, environmental justice. These are the things that would be allowed to be considered, not just lowest benefit, highest benefit, lowest cost. So this is really exciting. We expect rulemaking on this from the federal government really soon. This will change the Army Corps. We are still bound by this right now. The Army Corps has it. That's why this problem has been, this process has been so stilted. Next slide, please. And I'm almost done. So what do you do? So the next phase of this process is the pre-construction engineering and design, or the PED phase. It is what it says, pre-construction engineering design. Once you go through that, you go to construction. PED and construction are two separate processes, and they require two separate actions from City Council. Right now, the Army Corps and the city were negotiating, pondering the negotiation of the design agreement. The design agreement is between us and the Corps to say what we're going to do in the design phase. So this is where we push back, we push hard. We already know we want to have strong input into, if not manage the design process. When our water planning team has a contract that allows them to serve as an owner's agent to us for this process if we choose to go forward. City Council's decision. So we're negotiating the design agreement. We've told the 3-star general, the 2-star general, the 1-star general, all the generals know about the Charleston project, and we told them we want to design it. We don't trust you guys. And it's not that they do the work. Army Corps does not often work in urban environments. They work on beaches. They work in wetlands. And they dredge rivers, right? They don't do this. So we want to have design people, and they understand what they do. Once this design agreement is negotiated, City Council will be allowed to look at it, approve it, or suggest changes to it. we'll ask them to consider funding the first year of phase one of the pre-construction engineering design phase. Phase one is the west side, which is where our higher summer buildings are. As you know, it's the medical district, Charleston Village, really vulnerable for a lot of reasons. So this will be phase one. We're going to ask them to do that, fund that. I've already told the Army Corps we have some serious considerations about the plan that they've given us. They already know it, they agree with it. We know we can fix these things. Okay. Next slide, please. So you've seen these images, right? It's wonderful. This is, Army Corps didn't design a thing. They didn't make one drawing. These are outsiders' interpretation of what the Army Corps might give us. The Army Corps didn't trust it. So understand the nature of this. It's really hard to want this. Okay, next slide, please. However, so this is a storm surge structure in the Netherlands. Protects the beach of Scheveningen. It's about a 7-mile-long storm surge structure. Protects the Hague, which is the seat of the Dutch government. Can you see the storm surge structure? It's just good public space. Next slide, please. This is in Hamburg, Germany. Can you see the storm surge structure? Good public space. We may not like it because the Germans do things there, but this, you can't see it. In the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, they have sea level rise challenges there too. They need some more roads. They want some park space on the river because of those old wharves. That's not familiar with you, right? So they're going to put this underground road in there. It's going to be the storm surge wall. They're going to make a park behind it. So now you're getting local benefits. In New York, you know, Superstorm Sandy impacted them. They're doing sort of a surge thing around the bottom of Manhattan. This is lower east side. This is the famous public housing there. This is underway. They're designing this right now. The biggest challenge they're facing is how to get access to the public housing unit to this waterfront park they're going to build. You can build a surge structure and make them multi-benefit. Incredibly valuable. So I think we can do it. Next slide, please. Have the battery. Battery is more or less a bin wall in engineering terms. Bin walls are being considered in the Norfolk storm surge project that is almost fully designed right now. Phase one. Bin walls are the same cost as a surge wall. No big gray wall or a bin wall. Bin wall, you can put a walking path on top of it. Now you create the ability to create a walking path around the city. Which O'Reilly mentioned, let's create a river walk. Here's an image done by our design division of what the storm surge structure would look like at Joe Roddy Waterfront Park. Good design can get us a long way, protect us in this water. Next slide, please. I want to scare you a little bit. One day before Hurricane Ian made landfall, the Army Corps engineers, others ran models to say, what's going to happen to the city of Charleston if Ian makes landfall down at Kiowa or whatever? So 24 hours before landfall, we knew it was coming at us, if you recall this. This is the ad-surface storm surge model. It's the most well-used model. This is the ad-surface storm surge model for what would happen if Hurricane Ian would have hit us, as it was projected to make landfall 24 hours in advance. A lot of water on the peninsula. I want to call your attention to the distance between the Ashley River and the Cooper River on Duquesne Street, or distance between the two rivers on Calhoun Street. That's at 14 inches of sea level rise to that. We cannot stay here. I mean this by my heart. We cannot stay here in this city, on this peninsula, without a structured edge. The edge needs to come up. There's no doubt about it. Otherwise, we're going to get wet, and it's going to get wetter. The medical district's going to get in trouble. Okay, next slide, please. Here's a month later, Tropical Storm Nicole. This is on the east side. Here's the Cooper River coming into the city. Nicole was nothing. It was just a little tropical storm. We could get these 2 or 3 times a year. This is near Susan's house in Charleston Village. This is looking down Wentworth at the intersection of Gaston. And I want you to see that this is an open water connection from here to the marina. That's at 14 inches of sea level rise to that. we can't stay here without a structured edge. So that's the project we're trying to work on. We haven't done a thing yet. CD hasn't spent $1 on this project. It was fully funded. Feasibility is fully funded by the federal government. Can we move into the next phase? See if we can design this thing with the federal partners who help us pay for it. You know how I think about this. I think we have to try. But I understand the deep skepticism of it, and I hope you all now understand exactly what this is and what it is.
No, we appreciate you coming today. A lot of important information. Questions again from commission members? Questions, comments?
I have a quick question. It's a little selfish because I live in Wagner Terrace. But, so I understand how the structure would integrate into like the waterfront park and pockets maybe by the harbor and all of that, or the marina. But up near Wagner Terrace where there's some marsh and like, how would that wall be built? Would it be on the edge of the peninsula and like the walkway that would connect across like Halsey Creek? Like how would that?
Could you back up to the one graphic?
Cause I know it's
Yeah,
gonna,
no,
misinformation is gonna spread like crazy.
Yeah. No, so this is happening. So it's a yellow line, it's on ground, right? It's on land. The city and the Army Corps had a goal in feasibility to not take private property. We don't want to take anyone's private property. They did that a long time ago, no one likes that, right? So the only way you can protect this area is to put the structure in the marsh. So ideally, or sort of theoretically, this thing would be 20 to 30 to 40 feet off the land water edge, it would be in the marsh. What it looks like is a bit trickier because could you put a walking path on top of it? Maybe, but that's going to take more space. You know, the DHEC and the Department of Natural Resources don't like stuff in the marsh, so we have to be careful with that. We have to mitigate any impact we would have on the marsh when we construct it, as well as the long-term impact. So that's where it would be. One of the interesting things about Wagner Terrace and this 12-foot high design goal, or protection goal, we can sever Wagner Terrace from the project. We can keep the rest of the city watertight to 12-foot NAVDA. Structure. There's a dip on Rutledge somewhere. Christopher knows where it is. There's a dip in it, and if we would just put a little structure there, the rest of the peninsula is protected, and Wagner Terrace can be left alone. That is not a decision that the Army Corps is going to make. It's a decision that City Council is going to make. So you all have input on that. And if you say we don't want the structure in the marsh, you're just accepting your current flood risk, and you may need something else protection. But that's a decision that City Council. We can sever Wagner Terrace from the project.
Any other questions?
Yeah, good.
Any other questions? You know, you gave us a lot of information, a lot of important information. I know we thank you for your work and whatever we can do to help, let us know. But thank you for coming today, and thanks again for your work.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it. Good information. Thank you. Yeah.
That was extremely
I'm
helpful.
gonna go ahead and
Because I think
we've got a couple of sets of minutes that we need to approve. I think there's minutes from November the 16th and also the December minutes, I believe we need to approve. I had one correction in the December minutes, if we could. It's a small one. It's just on page 4 under PP and S department updates. When I say Chair Karras said it would be a good idea to have specific thoughts to speak about. It says life affordable housing. I think I said like affordable housing. It's just a small word. Anyway, if you could correct that. With that, I have no issue with making a motion on December. I know Ms. Jacobs wasn't here for December. I'll make a motion. We approve December's minutes. If there's not any other corrections. Second by Mr. Sane. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Yeah.
And I'll
Ms.
make a
Jacobs,
motion
say.
to approve November minutes.
Yep, you can make a motion to approve November? Great, Mr. Bailey, second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Thank you all for that. So the next item on the agenda is subdivisions. Number 1, River Road, Swigert Boulevard, Swigert Landing, Johns Island, TMS number 312-0000050, approximately 55.08 acres. First subdivision concept plan approval new CCDS district, Vine Elementary School. Who is gonna, there you go, thank you. Ms. Harper, you go ahead, thank you.
Thank you. One day, I tell you.
Oh, no, I got it. I got it.
Okay, this is a project on River Road, Swigert Landing, subdivision. The applicant is requesting approval for a subdivision concept plan. The proposed use for this parcel is a new Charleston County School District Elementary School. Property there. And, comprehensive, the city plan, the future land use is suburban areas to natural wetlands. This, the concept plan total area is approximately 55 acres. It's subdivided into 3 tracts, and it will create a new public right-of-way in the Swigert Landing neighborhood. Usually, a 3-lot subdivision does not require planning commission approval, but the creation of the right-of-way requires your approval for the concept plan. The removal of trees was reviewed and approved with conditions by the Board of Zoning Appeals site design at their meeting last week. There will be further coordination that is needed between the development team and SCDOT for any improvements and changes to River Road. The concept plan. So there's some photos of the property. The concept plan has been reviewed by the city's technical review committee, and it was found that it met the requirements for a concept plan approval. The project is the only concept plan it requires to come back for preliminary plat, road construction plans, and a site plan. So this is just a concept approval, and based on the PRC approval, the city recommends approval of the concept plan.
Thank you, ma'am. And I should have said earlier, if you're speaking, we'll ask the applicant to come forward, come on up to the podium, tell us who you are, where you live, and who you represent. So is the applicant with us? Come on up. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Mark Clancy. I'm an architect with Clancy and Wells here in Charleston. And I'm representing a large team of architects and engineers. And Sebastian Davis is also with us here tonight, a civil engineer with ADC Engineering in Hanahan. And my background is in school design. Actually, my kind of focus of my professional career has been architecture for children, with most of that being K-12 design. And we think the site is absolutely gorgeous and appropriate for school. We believe we have all the parts and pieces kind of in the right spots where they need to be on the site. The bottom, just third, is wetland area. And then we've kind of pushed the school down as far as we could in that location to provide as much space, basically north, plan is north is up. Provide as much space to the north of the school to serve as play area, detention pond, as well as buffer area where a realigned River Road is located. We've also placed the school entrance facing south to the developed neighborhood south of the site, with the idea that we've created for the public requirements, we've created a proposed new tree-lined street with parallel parking on both sides. And we've located the building in a manner that's kind of compact. It's 2 stories. It's tight with walking the site. Straight away, we realized we needed to have a fairly light, small footprint to remove as few trees as possible and to enable basically all of the site circulation, car drop-off, bus drop-off, parent pickup drop-off, staff parking, all of that basically to be maintained on the site. And so there's not stacking of buses off the site, not stacking of cars off the site. We don't show all the roads in this diagram, but they're actually drop-off pickup roads on property. And I guess another key point here with respect to River Road, our proposal basically puts a traffic circle sort of right where there's a natural existing bend in the road. It is an advantageous location because it allows us to pull the circle south of the existing River Road and not massively realign the River Road to be able to ease the traffic going into and out of that roundabout. So that's the reason for that location. as well as the fact that it impacts the existing trees the least. There's just beautiful trees all over the site, particularly on River Road, just on the northern part of our property. If it were located in any other spot, it really starts to impact more trees and a few grand trees in specific. With that, I think I'll introduce Sebastian and talk a little bit more about the engineering side.
On the engineering side, we first started this project, it was a concept in which the roundabout that's on River Road was more eastern, near Swagger Boulevard. That was a study that was reviewed by DOT that was found to be not the prime location or the best location due to, showed it previously, there was a large oak tree. And DOT is mainly focused on safety, they're focused on keeping cars moving, specifically this tree. This is where previously the roundabout was planned. Swagger's Boulevard is just on the other side of the picture, so DOT looked at the plan and they felt that putting that tree in the middle of a roundabout was not the best ideal location for that roundabout. So it was studied to put in a different location where it's currently shown, but it was more northern towards the properties to the north. So what we did when we came on board, we looked at the location of the roundabout to see where we could place, if there was a better location to place the roundabout. So we studied different locations along River Road, specifically looking to see if there was a possibility of relocating it and not lessen the impact on any of the surrounding properties. As we went through the design process, reviewing it with DOT, reviewing it with city staff, and reviewing it with the owner, we decided on this location. Additionally, like Mark mentioned, this location has a additional benefit. It's hard to see it in this plan view, but all of the circle is on the school district's property. What that allows to happen is allows for the contractor to build that circle almost completely without impacting River Road. It's all on the school's property. It's near River Road, but it's just on the school's property. It allows the contractor to build the entire circle, and as it moves out, right before they make the connection, that's when the contractor would have to enter River Road right of way to build it, which would allow them to have a brief amount of time making those connections and then getting the traffic onto the circle with the least amount of disruption. We understand that there are traffic concerns on River Road. One of the things that this traffic circle does, and in partnership with DOT and understanding their criteria for roundabouts, it is a speed reduction device. Like I mentioned before, DOT wants to keep the cars moving. This device has a couple different benefits. It does reduce the speed of the traffic, but it also allows the traffic to keep moving without slowing it down. It allows for the school traffic to enter the roundabout and get off of River Road quickly without stopping. I know a lot of you are aware of turn lanes. Turn lanes are very problematic, especially on high traffic roads, because cars have to stop in turn lanes. If someone's not paying attention, they veer out of their lane, then they hit a stop car. So this roundabout allows the traffic to keep moving. It does yield. Once people get used to a roundabout, the traffic does keep flowing. It's not perfect, but it does allow traffic to keep flowing. So that is a couple of the reasons why we decided on the roundabout here. Mark had mentioned that this plan does not show the internal workings of the site. This plan obviously is a concept, big picture to allow for building of the roads that connect to the adjacent neighborhoods. So 2 of the 3 connections, obviously River is one. You have Claybrook and you have Moonbeam, yes, sorry about that. Moonbeam, 2 of those connections are existing stub outs that we are connecting to. So those two connections are, for lack of a better term, dictated to us. So we're connecting River Road, the site, through the site to Moonbeam and Claybrook. So what we decided to do with the help of the city, and this site is zoned mixed use. So with this PUD that we're having to navigate, it requires, I think, at least two type 1 or two different types of streets. On this particular project, we've got a type 1 street along the frontage of the school. We've got a type 2, this portion of being type 2, Claybrook's type 2, and the upper portion between the two roundabouts is type 4, which has certain features of sidewalks on certain roadways and no sidewalks on certain roadways due to the type of road that it requires.
If I may interject too, the connectivity to the neighborhood is really a strong part of this concept. Typically, we'll have maybe two ways onto a school site, and they could possibly both be off of River Road. One is bus, one is car. By pushing down, connecting to the neighborhoods, trying to encourage walkers, bike riders. We have three legitimate ways on and off the site, which we think is a really strong selling point of the property and the overall concept.
And to play off what Mark just mentioned, school sites usually have 2 to 3 entries. As you can notice with this site, the roundabout provides the main entry into the site and is one connection, not 2, not 3. But also the function to keep traffic off of River Road, get the traffic off of River Road quickly, but also provides the functionality of accessing the site, whether going to the adjacent neighborhood in 2 different directions, or to the school site. That I will accept any questions that you all may have.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate it. Would anyone like to speak in favor of this application? Would anyone like to speak in opposition to the application? Yes, ma'am. Come on up. Come up and tell us who you are and where you live and who you represent anyone.
Sure. All right.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. My name is Kim Steele. My husband, my son, and I live at 1237 River Road. I submitted a 3-page letter earlier. I
Yes,
don't know if y'all
ma'am.
have-
We do have it. Yes,
Have
ma'am.
you all read it? My plan was to read it, but if you have all taken the time to read it, I won't.
Will you go ahead and surmise and tell us what your thoughts are? Thank you.
Our concerns with this, the location of the traffic circle. I had planned to submit an attachment with the letter, the way you can do it online, though you can't do an attachment. I have some copies of the actual design of what they're doing to our driveway and in front of our house, that these don't show. If I could pass those around.
Yes, ma'am. You go ahead.
I have about 4 copies. This is the star. It's starred at the top. And it says steel. I'm gonna show you off the show. Thank you. So our first concern with the property with the traffic circle and the way it is affecting our property, as you can see, it's directly in front of our home. With this design, we can no longer turn right out of our driveway. They have kind of left, I guess, what they'll call the old River Road in front of our driveway and created kind of a new access point for our property that is in front of our neighbors. Couple problems with this. Well, first, let me back up. First, if you can see where the traffic circle is in relation to our driveway, there is no buffer. There is no wall, there are no bushes, there are no trees. There is no buffer between that traffic circle and the front of our property. There's going to be a lot of noise with no buffer. We are very concerned about the location of the traffic circle in regards to lights. When the school buses and the cars are leaving the school, they will be facing directly into our front windows over and over and over again. And that's going to be a nuisance to us and an impact on our property. We're also concerned about cars kind of coming around the driveway. We have a garage located very close to the road without a buffer or anything. Any car that was to come off the road will hit our garage, which is right there. And that's one of our big concerns. The other concern with regards to the location of the traffic circle is access to our property. As you can see, the way they have it, there is no way for a trash truck to now come to my driveway and pick up my trash. I don't know how they're going to do that. I asked CCSD to explain that to me. They did not have an answer for that. I also asked about mail. Where will my mailbox go? Where will it need to be relocated? How will that work? They also have no answer for that in this design. Another issue with this is we have 2 boats. We have a 30-foot enclosed car trailer, and we have a 20-foot camper. We tow those vehicles on and off of our property all throughout the year regularly as we use them. With this design and the way that they have this curve and cut, I don't know that we're going to be able to get our vehicles on and off of our property and to be able to access it with those vehicles. Lastly, our issue is with the bus lot. We have a lot of concerns about the bus lot. I think it was originally 80 buses. It sounds like it's been reduced down to about 59, the last I heard. Those buses are going to be all of Johns Island County school buses, as well as some of James Island buses will be there as well. We're concerned about the traffic with that, having all these buses on River Road, in addition to James Island school buses coming onto Johns Island. I did request a copy of the traffic study. We were denied that request. They would not provide us with a copy. I have submitted a FOIA request, but as you all know, that's going to take some time before I receive that. One of the big concerns is the bus lot. When the bus lot is paved, there are going to be 60-something buses on it. There's going to be oil, gas, pollution from that. The storm water from that bus lot is going to flow down on the property. It goes into one detention pond at the front of the property. It then flows into another detention pond on the property. And then it goes straight into a storm drainage pipe that runs under River Road, through our yard, and straight into Penny Creek. We asked if there was going to be any monitoring or any way to make sure that the pollutants don't enter Penny Creek, and there doesn't seem to be. We were told that, DHEC monitors that and they take care of it. But the closest monitoring system to that we can figure out is the Limehouse Bridge, which is about 2 miles away. Penny Creek is an area where people swim, they fish, and it is lined with commercial crabbers who crab in that creek for their businesses. So the pollutants running straight from the bus lot directly into Penny Creek are a big concern of ours as well. I think that kind of highlights my biggest concerns with this project. I'd also like to let the planning committee know kind of about notice and how we got to this point. I have been asking since about September, October. I attended a meeting, a community meeting, and I asked how this would directly, the traffic circle was up more. It's kind of moved down over the months. It keeps moving forward. I asked if we were directly impacted by the traffic circle, how do we get more information about that? I gave a lady there my direct contact information. She was with CCSD, and she informed me there would be a community meeting if anybody's property was directly impacted by the traffic circle. There would be a community meeting held with just those homeowners. I was assured of that, and I gave her all of my personal information at that meeting. After the first of the year, I hadn't heard anything, and I inquired with CCSD again about, is there going to be a meeting? Because I'm seeing this traffic circle is moving closer to our property. I was told there would be a meeting in March, and that we would be receiving notices by certified mail. Not great. In the meantime, still hadn't heard anything. March is approaching, and I'm hearing that, it's going forward, watching the meetings. And I decided to call DOT myself and just kind of see where they are with the approval process for this project. When I spoke to the man there, just in conversation, he happened to mention to me that the meeting with the 8 homeowners who were impacted was going to be that Thursday, on March 9th. And I said, I don't think so. We were told we're getting a letter by certified mail, and we would have an opportunity, the homeowners would have an opportunity for input into this project. After that, I got off the phone. I was in touch with CCSD. It took me 2 more days for them to finally confirm there actually was a meeting. I let them know we never received a certified letter. I'm told they, I mailed all of us regular letters plus certified letters. I did not receive either one of those. My neighbors to the left of me did not receive either one of those. My neighbors to the right of me did not receive those. I also I voiced my concerns with CCSD about holding it, and the 8 homeowners didn't receive notice and asked if it would go forward. I was told, yes, it will go forward. They'll just see who shows up and we'll adjust from there. On Tuesday night before the meeting, between the hours of about 8 and 9 p.m., we had a man knock at our door who I believe was with the building, this man right here, who is not with CCSD. He's the builder of the pool. I may be saying that correctly. He was nice enough to risk his life walking down River Road, but he came and knocked on our doors at 8, 9 o'clock, and that's how the homeowners that are all impacted by the traffic circle received notice of the meeting. And that was less than 48 hours prior. So that's kind of where we stand. And for all the reasons listed in my letter and that I've stated today, I would respectfully request that you deny the site approval plan at this time until CCSD can come up with a better alternative for the traffic circle that does not have as many negative impacts on my property and on community.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for coming, and we'll see if we can get some answers when they get us. Thank you. Yes, sir. Come on up.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairperson and members of the commission. This deal did a lot of the hard work for me in laying out some of the details, and I understand this is.
Tell us who you are. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just assume everybody knows that.
That's all right.
Mark Davis.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Mark Davis. I live on this drawing to the left of the Steele's property at 1227 River Road.
Do you belong to Jennifer Davis?
I belong to Jennifer.
Okay. We got her letter.
Yeah, so that, yeah.
She was the author of the letter.
Thank you.
But thank you for looking at that. But anyway, I'll rather than rehashing a lot, I would second a lot of her concerns, in particularly the details. I think the main issue here today is just one of notice and fairness. Really, the first time I learned that the traffic circle was in front of our neighbors and our house was, when was it, March 7th at 9:30 p.m. And that was a little shocking. Before, I was under the impression, and I think even the project, the application is called the Swigert Landing Project, because I think that's where the traffic circle originally was planned to be. So it's all a big surprise and all a little bit flat-footed in terms of getting information and understanding the whys and the hows. And I was able to attend the meeting on the 9th, and Mr. Clancy and Mr. Davis were there, and they provided information as well as the school district. But there was no, and again, I understand this is the concept, but there was no clear understanding of how this was going to work relative to the impact on our properties, the relocation of River Road and our access to it. Ms. Steele mentioned she would not be able to turn left. I'm on the other side of the traffic circle, and I won't be able to turn right, which is the way we take our kids to school every day and go downtown and all over the place. But that's the main concern. So I would ask the Commission's consideration in postponing the vote and tabling it for further discussion, at least until the adjacent property owners can get some more answers. I'm not against traffic circles. In fact, I think they're useful. I'm also understanding that, nobody wants things in their backyard to deal with. I understand we lived here a long time and on Johns Island a long time and understand there's no perfect solution. I understand we need a new school. There's some other issues associated with that about closing a school that not really the purview of this commission, but that's the main thing. And the bus storage lot for 59, 60 buses, just for a point of comparison, the bus lot at the St. John's High School holds about, I think, 32 buses, or maybe has 30 spaces, somewhere in there. The other thing, Ms. Steele mentioned, the drainage into the creek between the properties. And this is something also we're trying to look into, but it's our understanding there is a 30-foot easement, a drainage easement. But then the rest, unlike most wetlands, and I don't want to speak inaccurately until I can confirm this, again, I haven't had time, but it is that channel, there was many years ago, there was a man-made channel, and it's become a creek which flows into Penny Creek, which then flows into the Stone Oak. But we actually own that creek, unlike most wetlands. And I think the way that came about is because it was originally man-made for mosquito control back a long time ago. And so that would directly, that discharge would be discharging on our property. And of course we have concerns about that. I think a lot of and I know stormwater, it's a lot of considerations going into that, primarily to address flooding issues and the release of water, particularly when compared to a forested area versus a gray surface with fill dirt and parking lots and that sort of thing. But there appears to be no plan or no addressing or mitigation or monitoring of pollution. So that's a huge concern for us as well. And, obviously, traffic is a big issue. I know, I don't know if you've been to Johns Island lately or driven down River Road, but we joke that the speed of cars there seems to be 65 miles an hour or 0. There's no in between. And it's a little concerning, and also concerning that the traffic impact study was not voluntarily provided by the school district. Why not? If they're truly trying to work with us to find a solution where we can all live harmoniously together, give us the traffic study. Let's understand what we're getting into. But instead, they're forcing a lengthy FOIA process, and we don't have that information. So, the other thing, the meeting was purported, and I don't mean this disparagingly in any way, the meeting was purported to consider the interests of the adjacent property owners and the impact. But there was they did let us speak, and we talked, and they provided information, but there was no clear plan on how to go forward. How do we address this concern? Concern 1, 2, 3, and 4. How do we address the errant car leaving the traffic circle and plowing through our house? There's no plan in place to address that, which is a little concerning. And I think some overtures were made about, yes, we're going to work with you. We'll try to do this, but I mean, frankly, if it's not in writing, I don't know who's going to be there a year from now, so I don't know if I can take your word for it. So all that's a long way of saying that I think we need, particularly the homeowners on the adjacent properties, need a little more time to understand the impact of this. Since we've had, it's today the 15th, so only since the 7th were we aware of it, or I was aware of it. I can't speak for this deal, but anyway, thank you for your time. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for coming and being with us. Does anyone else like to speak in opposition to this request? If not, would you like, come on out, please.
I don't need to speak, but I'm a neighbor and I don't know that I could add too much more than that.
Would you tell us who you are and where you live?
That's Sarah Loudon at 1243 River Road, which would be on the other side.
Okay, and you agree with these folks? Is that what you want?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for coming, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, would the applicant like to address some of the concerns? We'll sneak out on it.
Was that? No, so, we appreciate the comments. Actually, we embrace the challenge of a lot of the issues that were raised. With respect to the actual space between the realigned River Road and the roundabout and the existing property owners and their driveways, there are many different ways to approach that. And we presented what was one of, I guess, several options that are all under study. The extension of the roadways, whether they're, the radius has changed, whether they're wider, narrower, how the actual mailboxes work, how recycling works, how trash works. All that is under study, and we certainly don't want anyone that can't get a boat out of the driveway or that has difficulty with the mail and trash, that sort of thing. So, and again, that's the sketch that we presented the other night was one of many that, does definitely need buffering, landscaping, and some sort of, both from a light perspective and sound perspective, and visual buffer to the school, along with what's more fully developed south of River Road. So we embrace that, and we've offered to have another meeting with the neighbors as well to kind of further this discussion. And apologies are in order for not yet, for whatever happened with respect to that invitation. I don't understand what happened there. The regular mail and the certified letter and email and text, there's so many ways to communicate. I don't understand how that happened. There were multiple community meetings, to be fair. I think that was the fourth meeting. We had a meeting at St. John, a meeting at Angel Oak, and a meeting at Hot Gap along a period of, I don't know, months, 6 months or so. This meeting was exclusively for the neighbors across the drive. But all those other meetings were open to the public, invitations to them as well. And there has been movement agreed along with that traffic circle location as well along the process of design. What we're seeking tonight is concept approval. Why don't we maybe, Sebastian, you address some of the additional issues raised?
If I could talk about the traffic circle, I don't know if you can zoom in on this picture. It is a little bit different from what Ms. Steele actually provided. The only difference, or one of the differences, is the driveway here was separated out. With help with CCFD, we met after this was previously submitted to the city for review to see what we could do to try and separate as many of the drives as possible. So that was one solution. And I will say, throughout the design process, it is not something that stays static. As we go through the process with the city, specifically city, DOT, all those different municipalities as far as public works, things of that nature, their comments get incorporated and things change. But it's not something where the circle starts here and it ends up over there overnight. This circle's been at this location since, I want to say, October. We went through, as Mark previously mentioned, we went through a few concepts with the city specifically because of the PUD that this site lays into. And with it being a mixed-use project, the city has very strict requirements on what the building must face, how the building must face it, the distance between the roadway and the building. And a lot of the changes were focused specifically here on how the site fronts certain roadways, whether it's moonbeam, whether it's type 1, type 2, different things there transpired over that amount of time. And that was the largest change. Were there some changes up at River Road? Sure. Most definitely there were changes there. But to put it in perspective, the existing River Road is across these two drives that are kind of separated in the middle. We basically cut the asphalt out in the middle so no one could leave the River Road drive and drive around and use their road as a cut. If traffic's backed up in the circle for whatever reason, someone couldn't use that road if it was connected just to bypass the circle and use their drive or frontage road as just a cut through. We all experience those type of things where people are impatient sometimes in heavy traffic. So that was one of the considerations in making that separation. But if you look at it, the circle is no closer to the adjacent property owners than the existing River Road. If you measure the distance from their property line to the edge of that circle is 53 feet. The existing River Road is 22 feet wide, and that road fits in between the circle with more space. do they have valid concerns about the traffic, the lights shining into their property? Yes. We have a landscape architect on our staff, and he's looked at specifically softening the drives, looking at landscaping. As we go through the process, what you don't see here, this plan is meant to show the connection. It doesn't show landscaping. The city requires a landscaping plan. That is, throughout the process, those things will be developed. And CCSD has tasked us with making sure that, that there is a buffer. Currently, there are some trees along River Road, specifically grand trees. There are not a lot of small trees in between the roadway and the adjacent property. There's shrubs, there's things of that nature. We are not proposing to remove any of those that are currently on their property or in that area. There is a ditch between the road and their property that we're not even touching, that we're staying out of. They have valid concerns with light, things of that nature, and as the process goes on through the city TRC process, this project has, I think, 3 different packages that the city's looking at. And anytime you see something 3 times, you're going to get more and more comments, specifically whether it's about one thing or another thing. We've received numerous comments from the city, and every time we return, we've addressed every single one of those. So I say that to say that when we go through the process, things will change. Considerations that they bring up will get addressed and put into the plan, specifically when you talk about landscaping. Yeah. And also, I want to highlight the separation between the school site and the new River Road. There's a 75-foot buffer. The city has tasked us with that being uninterrupted, retaining a lot of the existing vegetation. If you take a 75-foot roadway width, essentially, or right-of-way, and you plant trees all in that area, there's going to be a lot of natural vegetation which buffers River Road from the school site. Will there be a passage for the traffic circle to go through? Will there be an opening? Yes. But all along the frontage of our property, you can see 75-foot type G buffer. That's existing vegetation. If you go back to the aerial, that site is completely wooded now. We're not proposing to take out all of that vegetation. Did we submit a variance to remove grand trees? Yes. But when you look at this site, it has, dare I say, 6,000 trees on it. A lot of that vegetation is remaining. Do we have to take some of it out? Yes, in order to develop. But there's going to be at least over 3,000 trees remaining on the site. And in addition to that, we do have to do a landscape plan, which will add more trees. So from the standpoint of grand trees, last count by the BZA, I think it was 130 grand trees. We were approved to take 60. As far as drainage is concerned, basic property owners are correct. There is an easement that runs out to Penny Creek. That easement is maintained by Charleston County. Our drainage from our site, as you currently see it now, is a completely wooded site. As before we started talking about the project, we were talking about a bit of drainage, something about the city's drainage plan. We've been working with the city public works. Won't bore you with the details, but the city has a requirement that we cannot release more water than we're currently releasing. That is a standard, essentially. So we designed our storm drainage to that effect. We're not releasing any more storm water at a rate any faster than it currently leaves our site, which is a wooded site. And wooded sites don't release water that fast. So also we're meeting the volume, the overall volume of water leaving the site. So
The volume does not change.
the volume does not change. You have to meet pre-development conditions. So there is that factor in there. So there are a lot of things that we're doing that when you go through the design process, these are things you have to comply with.
Right.
There's a lot of rules and regulations.
Is there anything else? I'm sorry, I won't. Great, thank
We
you.
appreciate your time.
No, thank you. Let me ask y'all one question. You're the architect and the engineer for the applicant, which is the school district. Do they handle the communication with neighborhoods and things, or who handles that? Y'all don't deal with that. That's something the school district is doing?
That is correct, sir. Frank Cole and Brownstone, I contracted to support the capital program for.
Okay, so the school district should be in communication. They're the ones that are charged with communicating with the neighbors, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I was tasked once the concept of getting the certified mails didn't reach.
I got you.
And so.
So they reached out to you to ask them, I got you.
In an attempt to get the message.
Thank you. Thank you. That's going to close the public aspect of this meeting. I had a couple of things I just wanted to say so we all know this is a concept plan approval. Ms. Harp, if we approve this, where does this go? It goes, somebody said several times, looked at, hearings and things like that.
That's
Could you
correct.
review that with us?
It will go back to the technical review committee. It will have 3 reviews. It will review for preliminary plat, to subdivide the lot, road construction plans, to approve the roads that are going to be built, and for a site plan. And the site plan is to build this school. So there will be 3 reviews.
So there could be a lot of changes and moving parts in
Yes, sir.
this.
And as they explained, we will have to meet all the stormwater requirements for the 2020 manual, who are very
Right.
strict.
So this is a ways away from that. Thank you. Commission members, thoughts, comments, Ms. Jacobs, Mr. Bailey, either one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did look up in our rules, because there was a request for us to consider deferral. We do have 60 days to make decisions on concept plans, so if we felt so inclined, we do. It's not like a regular zoning where we only have 30 days and we don't have 30 days to our next meeting. So I just wanted to put that on the record. However, I will say, to reiterate what the chair said, the concept plan is just the beginning of the process. And if you know anything about our technical review system, it's stringent and people don't get out of it until it's perfect. With regard to your stormwater, they cannot release what you're talking about now under our new manual system. And even though we recently reviewed some things on Johns Island, it might be that the water doesn't necessarily even flow from that side of the road to your side of the road. We don't have any knowledge of that from hydrology right now. So they go through a very, very, very extensive. I mean, we reviewed some of them on this commission, and those TRC reports for stormwater can be 40, 50 pages long for a project. So if that helps you allay your concerns, the city does have brand new regulations that has to go under for any kind of development. I would just like to add, I live in a neighborhood that has had a school just rebuilt in the center of it, and I would like to ask the question, is this a charter or a magnet or a general public school?
The general public school.
It's a general public school. Thank you. Because when I live in Burns Downs, with Windermere and South Windermere around it, when they redesigned the school system there, they assured us that they would handle all the traffic on site. I really hope you sharpen your pencil when you go back to TRC about traffic, because that did not happen there. And I know that it is really important when you cite a school to make sure that you make that commitment and you sharpen your pencil on that one. And I'm not making a motion this time. I just
Mr. Bailey?
I mean, there are a lot of things written about here and said, and I do agree that throughout this process, many of them will be addressed. But to me, the main issue is this realignment of River Road and this roundabout and the very real impact that it appears to have on some of these property owners. I understand that you presented one possible solution, that this is an adaptive process and it will be iterative and so forth. But if I live here, I don't feel real good about, well, we'll get to it. I don't feel good about that at all. I mean, this property is going to be developed. It's in a PUD, right? It's a mixed use. It's gonna happen, it's gonna be a school, there's gonna be more traffic, there's gonna be more development, there's gonna be headlights coming out of this, all of that's gonna happen. And hopefully throughout this lengthy process, many of those things will be mitigated. But if you've lived here for 19 years and the way you get on and off the river road is about to be changed so dramatically, and you've had a week to digest that, and all you're getting, and you're not even getting it from your future neighbor, CCSD. It's pretty irritating that there's no one from CCSD here. It's just the design team, and you're doing your job, by the way. But to me, that wouldn't sit well with me if this were my house or my house. And so I'm not going to make a motion yet because I want other people to be able to weigh in. But I am very much in favor of Ms. Jacobs' idea that we have a little time here for these folks to have this major disruption to the way they live to be addressed a little more concretely.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Other comments?
Well,
Ms. Johnson?
I'm going to make a motion, and I'd like to move to defer. I agree with everything you both said. I think adequate notice is just a big part of the process, and we believe strongly in that in the city. And I don't know what happened, I'm not sure of that, but this is very little time to digest something that's a huge impact on these property owners. So make a motion to defer.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Other comments, questions? I think it makes sense. Again, we have the right to defer. My biggest thing is that's why I asked the question about the communication. I think the school district needs to do a lot better job of communicating with people, so that they.
I will tell you, in the school district's defense, the Charleston County has a project for Savannah Highway improvement where they mailed out by consultants 3,000 letters, and we polled a lot of people, and nobody got them.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's the
Right.
consultant or the
Well,
mail or what, but
But
there
anyway,
needs to
I
be
agree with the
an
motion. I
extra
think it
effort.
makes sense. While it is just concept approval, and I agree that a lot of these things get resolved. So you know this. If a subdivision meets the requirements, we're almost bound to approve them, but we can defer it so that we get more time. And I hope you folks, I don't know the people of Charleston County, you all can call them tomorrow morning, let them know that the commission has put this off because we're not happy with the communication aspect of this. We appreciate them getting with the neighbors and talking about it a little bit more. So there's a motion by Ms. Johnson, a second by Ms. Jacobs. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So I think that's 8 in favor and none against. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your work. Next item on the agenda is subdivision property conversion, property on Nautical Park Drive, Bolton Landing, West Ashley, TMS number 286-00000047.3 acres. Our request under section 54-815 of the zoning code to convert common area, open space parcel, reserve parcel to building site